And I'm just going to shift the narrative a little bit here. Towards in one of your previous interviews, you talked about how some narratives click and some narratives don't.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I was thinking was, if we want to do take a middle ground, have you identified any ways of finding the narratives that click in order to get what you want than you did in the past? Like, are you learning something with the tools that you have in order to get better at it, better at getting the message out?
Yeah. The first one is one we've talked about, I think already here today, and that is, whatever you're doing in your messaging, it has got to be authentic, right? If it's a little fakey, if it ain't you, and I mean profoundly you, people sniff that shit out from 100 miles away. And maybe it works for a little bit, but it doesn't work for long. The converse of that is true as well. You may come up with something that's true to your heart, that is authentic to you, and it may not work. Right? Stick with it, is what I'm saying. There is a long game here, right? And in the same way that we have this, I know it seems like we have this short attention theater going on with all of us, and Rodrigo is saying, we've got 30 big stories this year. The message you have, these stories, though, they also never go away, right? So if you just stick with it, and if it's really authentic, you will find your pack. It's never been easier to get a message out there today, right? You don't have the intermediary forces of, publishers and government and the like. If you've got a message, you got something to say, you can get it out there. People may not care, but you're not going to be prevented from getting it out there.
But I guess what I was asking is, do the narrative maps that you see help you in trying to navigate it better?
Well, I'll give you an example because usually the examples I'm looking up are things where I think the world has gone awry, and you can really see it in these narrative maps. Tesla's a great. I know I was talking about Tesla, but let me talk to you about Tesla and the narrative around Tesla. And historically, there have always been two narratives around Tesla, and you can actually see them in these kind of like clusters and maps that we create. There's the narrative around Tesla, the company. How many cars does it build? How profitable is it? Blah, 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 right? And then there's the narrative around Tesla, the idea, right? Oh, autonomous vehicles and, batteries and space and all these ideas. What you see is this great big tug of war between these two very distinct narrative concepts around Tesla. And whenever Tesla, the idea, is more central in the map, whenever it's dominant, stock price goes up. Whenever the narrative around Tesla, the company, is dominant, stock price goes down. Okay? What's happened just over the last 6 months, though, is something really weird. There's been a third body, right? A third narrative body. And that's just Tesla, the stock. Tesla, the stock, right? The articles, the narrative is around what did the stock do? Not what's the company doing? Not, what's the big fundamental idea about driving it? No. It's just Tesla, the stock. And you also see this like with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. You've got, a small smattering of articles that are about, Bitcoin, the, store of value or whatever the fundamental ideas are. And then there's another cluster. It's just, okay, Bitcoin, the price, the price of the commodity or coin, whatever you want to call it. When the narrative is about the price of something, and the sentiment is positive, when you've got effective missionaries, man, it just goes up. It wins.
It's the self-reinforcing expectations of price reinforced by the self-reinforcing expectations.
It's what George Soros called reflexivity,
Yep.
right? I mean, that was his concept, and he was right. There's a bigger concept. There are lots of messages that we get. He was just focused on the messages that the market gives itself, right? That's reflexivity, the information in price and the way that rolls on itself. It's also messages from what we call missionaries and from the world, but that is exactly the idea. So that's a really interesting thing to think about, right? If you're thinking about how do I create a narrative where I want the price of my effort to go up, how do I want people to be talking about it? One of the real important things is you want people to be talking about you because it's the crowd looking at the crowd. And so you should absolutely tell people, oh, I've reached this milestone in, AUM, right? Or whatever this stuff, it's it's a little, you can be braggy about it and you've got to craft it in the right way, but craft it in the right way. When you get that kind of snowball rolling down the hill and you get people talking about the success of you, that makes you successful. Right. So,
wow.
It's nothing that a PR guy doesn't already know.
It's
right?
Trump praising the million people in the crowd and there being,
you got it, man.
4,000 and exactly just that sort of signaling.
You got it. You call the attention of the crowd to the crowd and to the signifiers of the crowd, whether that's stock price or what have you, and you take it away from the quotidian details of the performance of your entity, because that's just going to be a downer.
Yep, it's the laugh track. People have to be told what they should think about it. Exactly.
Figure out your laugh track, man. That's exactly it. We're all a sitcom here. We're all a sitcom.
Well,
amen.
Does anyone know where Galt's Gulch is? I need directions to. I think that's where my pack is.
So I'm curious what the current. I mean, this year the changes in narratives and the turbulence in narratives has just been unlike anything I've ever experienced. Anyways, I'm just wondering because you've got this quantitative tool that you use to sort of identify the clusters of narratives and it's like a minimum spanning tree or something. But there's some causal chains in the narratives and stuff, and I'm just wondering, what are you seeing, or what is most relevant to what you're observing or have observed about that in the near term or at the moment?
So, big picture, what I'd say is that yes, we've had all these, literally a cataclysmic shock in the form of COVID-19. We've got the political shocks that come every day. One of the things that I find most fascinating, though, is that the day-to-day business of Wall Street, which is to make up stories to sell you shit, it just goes like clockwork. It just keeps on going. Every month there's a news story. Buy financials. Buy consumer discretionary. Buy technology. What are you going to buy next? What are you going to buy next? And that constant metronome of narrative, it's still with us, man. It is. I don't know how it ever goes away. So that's what we try to focus most on in kind of our applications of this, is identifying the business of Wall Street, which is to make up stories to get you to buy shit. And they're really good at it. And it doesn't stop. It never stops. And so that's one picture, right? So not the.
Can you differentiate that for me from just business? I mean, isn't that the objective of capitalism, to make up stories for you to buy shit?
No.
How would it be different than the reason we again, you're sold things, whether it's food, whether it's cars, whether it's the next thing, to create a narrative around your social status? How, like,
you're right. This
such an interesting.
This aspect, this exercise is part of every business. It's been part of humanity since we have had humanity, right? It expresses itself a lot in politics, but where I find it in its purest form is financial assets, because, man, that's what a multiple is. How do you price a cash flow? What's the story? That's
Okay.
that's all it is. Price is story, right? I mean, so it is such part and parcel of these, you know, intangible things that we live and breathe, right? It's all story. So you're right. It's in every business, right? You got to sell,
Yep.
you got to,
Whatever,
sell
widgets,
candy
cars,
bars. You got to sell
jewelry,
cars. You got to
watches,
sell
art. I mean,
whatever,
maybe art
right?
would come close. I'm not sure.
Art comes pretty close. I agree with that. Art comes close.
Security.
Frankly, that's how I've always thought of Bitcoin, right? I think Bitcoin is very elegant art. Does it have value? Absolutely,
That's great.
absolutely.
love
But
it.
that's what Bitcoin is to me. It's very elegant and beautiful art, but it's story.